Hey, everybody. I'm Jordan Tenenbaum, the host of the Celigo Technology Leadership Podcast. Today, we're joined by Cara Roor, the Vice President of Technology at Clickstop. And as always, my trusty co-host, Mark Simon, the Vice President of Strategy at Celigo. Cara, how are you
Hello.
doing today?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Doing very well. Thank you. Well, we're going to jump in as we normally do. Cara, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself and kind of how you became a Vice President of Technology? What's the story behind your journey there?
Yeah, so I started back in 2013 here at Clickstop as a sales and service rep. I moved out of a commission style based role and really wanted to change up going to a new younger company that was on the up and coming. And I really just wanted my foot in the door. We're a big local, um, great, great places to work, great culture driven company. And I have quite a few friends from high school that were here, and I wanted to see what they were doing and why. I knew nothing about ClickStop and what it was until I applied. And I never thought that my life would lead me to selling ratchet straps for a while because to this day, 10 years later, still can't even use one, but was trying to tell people on the phone and help them use them for a while. I kind of just moved around, taking on any opportunity that was available at ClickStop. That's the great thing about our business. The mission is, providing opportunities for those who seek it. And I really just dove head into that and was like, anytime there is an opportunity that fits where I'm benefiting the company and it's also benefiting me, I want to jump into that and try it out and fill that need to make an impact. That journey led me through about 4 or 5 different roles on 4 or 5 different teams until I found my home probably 5 years ago on the technology team as a project coordinator, just helping get everything organized. If you work with any type of developer or technical person, you know that they don't want to be the manager of the work. They just want to do the work, and we had a need to get very organized. So I stepped in to fill that role and just kind of worked my way up through that. We had a need about a year and a half ago, I guess, to have a leader from our team um, represent us in the leadership at the leadership level. And I kind of just raised my hand and said, "Hey, I'll do it until you find someone." And then about 5 months in, they asked me to stay on full time as the VP of technology.
That's awesome. What a story, and congrats on making it all the way up to the
Thanks.
VP role. That's super exciting. So for those who don't know, Clickstop is, I'll say, an e-commerce conglomerate because it makes you guys sound fantastic. Could you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about maybe what Clickstop entails in terms of brands and a little bit about how you guys have grown, and then we can kind of jump in with a little bit more targeted questions from Mark. But I just want to hear the story about Clickstop and the brands that make it up.
Yeah. So we're an e-commerce company. I would say first. We've taken on more things as that has happened, but we're an e-commerce company first. We have 4 brands that we fully run within our business. So we have U.S. Cargo Control, Fasteners Plus, Ecofoil, and Pepper Joe's. Some of these are brands that we built from the startup. Fasteners Plus is something we started on its own and incubated it up into the company that it is now. And then others we've acquired, like Pepper Joe's, we bought, I think in 2018. We acquired it, took on all of its inventory and its platform, and have just continued to run it and then grow it. So we built a greenhouse in our backyard of our main warehouse, but we have a greenhouse that we're growing our pepper seeds and stuff through. And then we also acquired a company called Clean Laundry, and that's it's a licensing program where you can own and operate laundromats around the country. So we've got, I think, 30 some odd laundromats across the US that are focused on like high efficiency and and great technology. Like it's a really cool atmosphere to go into. It's super clean. The machines are all ran pretty high tech wise. They've got, so you can do stuff from your app. It's not the typical take your quarters in and go do your laundry type of a place.
The Apple of laundromats. That's fantastic.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way to say it. Yeah, so we've we've got the 4 e-commerce brands and then the clean laundry.
Fantastic.
So that's kind of Cara, that's kind of interesting to me. Those are 4 or 5 different business channels that have some, like 4 of them have some similarity, right? Because they're e-commerce. But when you look at those businesses, they're in some ways, some of them are pretty different. You look at like Pepper Joe's and you're selling seeds, essentially seeds, and I think maybe starts as well. And then you've got manufactured, items, assume probably offshore manufactured from a ratchet standpoint.
Oh, we actually manufacture those in house. Yeah.
Oh, you do? Oh, that's
cool.
We do manufacturing. That's even more interesting.
Yeah, we do manufacturing in our warehouse here. Yep.
Oh, that's even more complex when you manufacture it on. So they have some similarity, but I almost say those businesses are more different than they are alike. That must kind of impose some challenges, from a systems perspective, from a process perspective first. Then you must see that in systems. I'm curious, kind of what are some of the challenges you see and how you address those.
Yeah. So the challenges seem to be different every day. Something new comes up and someone wants to try something that we've not done before. I would say Pepper Joe's is probably our most unlike the other 3 when it comes to how we do stuff. They're much more B2C driven than B2B like our other brands are. So sometimes we're doing unique things for them that we've never really had to think about before. They're also consumable items. They have an expiration date. And for the last 10 years that I've been here, plus even before then, we never had to worry about stuff that expired and had to find a way of tracking that properly in our system because we didn't have to follow that methodology. So it's become super clear to us that we can't always make everything as much as we want to be one size fits all and do it all the same for all of the brands. And we've just had to use the guiding lines of this is what our business model is, and then find ways to make stuff work within that system.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So you talk about, so I assume you must be using like lot tracked inventory for Pepper Joe's, right? That's a big, and from my consulting background, often clients would be engaging to work with us when they're usually shifting ERPs. And when they do that, you always look at process. So very often we're implementing lot track, serialized, basically more stringent inventory control period, but often a new type of inventory control, like food companies moving to lot tracked inventory for the first time is something that I saw really commonly. And one of the things I saw was that you're now leveling up your operational discipline to like a whole new level, like going to lot track. How did that impact the organization to add in, and not only add in a new business, but one that was lot tracked? I imagine that must have been challenging and kind of stretched the team a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's gone through some evolutions in how we're doing it. When we first took it on, we kind of kept it, and have for quite a while, kept it, I would say, on the side. It functions over here where the rest of our stuff is functioning over here. So it's in our system, but the people doing the stuff for Fasteners Plus, U.S. Cargo Control, and Ecofoil aren't having to deal with the stuff that's happening with Pepper Joe's. We've got a dedicated group of people that were working in that way and able to like just focus on that matter. We're actually taking that and combining them now. We're joining forces and moving Pepper Joe's to be more of a shared model where it will have the same people that are shipping ratchet straps, shipping pepper seeds. Well, those ship very differently. They're much different in weight. They're much different in how they have to be controlled and managed. So our warehouses are really getting a lot of focus in the coming year of like, what does it mean to be a super high functioning warehouse that's managing such different items. So that's kind of what's been our biggest unique challenge, is they've not ever experienced it before. They're going to have to do different things in the system that they didn't have to do before. But then we're also getting really reliable on the system. We can't just use tribal knowledge of one person, because we're going to have 26 to 30 people now helping with that.
Very interesting.
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Go ahead, Jordan.
I was just going to say, so I was reading on your website, your warehouse is, I think the most recent upgrade is like almost 150,000 square feet, which is, congrats. That's just like mind-boggling how big that is. You have all of these different brands that are very different, whether it's size, whether it's how you deal with it, whether it's storage. Personally, I'm just thinking, wow, like taxes must be a pain, and I'm glad I don't have to deal with that. But when it comes to technology to manage such diverse businesses, maybe one, like, how are you doing it, and what's your personal strategy when it comes to, whether it's an ERP or EDI or integrations? How do you get everything under one umbrella and kind of unify it technologically?
Yeah, so as a business, we've been using NetSuite as our ERP for years. I think we're probably like 15 or 16 years in on it. And that's where we've always kind of centralized everything. So we're a NetSuite first business model when it comes to choosing software solutions. We've had to go through some challenges of decoupling things off of NetSuite. When we decided to move to a different front end platform, we had to find a connector because of all these different moving parts. But over the years, we've always kind of really stuck to the NetSuite first. NetSuite first. They're our centralized place, and then go from there. So when we're choosing tools, they've got to work great with it. That's like the first thing we have to make sure has happened. If we don't, it's a struggle. And we tried to go a different direction in the past. We've used a connector, or we've used tools that were like, oh, it says it works with both. We need to really flesh out and vet the stuff NetSuite first. And that's kind of where we live with the way we're choosing stuff. I think that's one of the main things. We do, something like EDI, and how do we like take manual processes away from people? As you grow 4 brands, and they have 4 different kind of seasonalities, we've got a lot of things happening at a lot of, all throughout the day. When we want to grow at whatever percentage we want to grow at, but we want to stay lean with our our people money. What do you call that? Your payroll expenses. There we go. When you want to keep that, on the lower side, because we are employee owned, we're ESOP. And so you want to see that be bigger. You're looking for the right solution that's going to last long term. That focus is really big on, making sure it connects well.
Got it. Thank you.
That's really interesting. So I kind of heard there, loud and clear, that you're very like a lot of companies, especially mid-sized companies, your ERP is the core of your business. You start there, that's the foundation. Yeah. And that kind of echoes everything we see typically, especially mid-market. The ERP is you start your digital transformation there. You can't really do much automating of the business until you have a modern ERP, and then it expands out. So that's very logical. And I always think of, companies kind of evolving their tech stack, and it sounds like you really did over the years. So you mentioned the e-commerce side and the EDI. I'd love to dive into both of those. First, what direction did you go from an e-commerce perspective first? Like what platform did we choose? Yeah. What platform did you pick?
Sure. So when we acquired Pepper Joe's, they lived on Shopify. So we didn't move them off of that. We kept them on that instead of trying to recreate that site on NetSuite's SCA. So we left them on Shopify, and we kind of ran them, like I said, as 2 separate businesses in some capacity, and we just transferred data over to do the financial stuff at the end of the month. We got to a point where we had outgrown or wanted to do more than what SCA could give us when it came to our front end platform. And Shopify is, they're a titan in the industry. They're leading the way on what front end web sales are. And so we chose to go with them, and we moved 3 sites over in the course of a year and a half, I think. We moved 3 sites over, and we didn't have any experience in Shopify. We had one web developer who was very fluent in SCA and had done all that, but we were saying, okay, we're moving to Shopify, and nobody in our company had ever done anything in Shopify outside of managing a site that we had purchased, and we were just maintaining the front end of it. We weren't expanding or growing it much.
That's interesting. So I'm I've heard a lot of people, business leaders say, well, I'm if they're on the Suite Commerce Advanced, they've already invested there, they have a site built out. They're like, well, I don't want to move to a Shopify or a Magento or BigCommerce, something external, because they're like, well, I don't necessarily want to have to manage or maintain the integration. I'm curious to see what your experience was making that shift. Like, did it all sum out essentially? Was that would those concerns be valid or not based on your perspective?
Yeah, those are super valid concerns, and something that we did struggle through at first. We were in a space of, okay, we have to find a way to connect all these. We've done connections in the past. We've done basic API calls to different things, but we're talking about web sales and the amount of traffic that we have going on those sites. If you have 2,000 orders a day or more that are happening on your front end, how do we get those to shipping before the 4:00 shut off time that we have, so that we're getting our customers what they want when they need it? We have to have something that's reliable and efficient. I think we went in a little bit overzealous and thought, oh, we can do this, no problem. Let's just pick one and go. And that was clearly not the right way to go about it, but it did help us learn what we should do going forward when it comes to choosing something or by doing a connection. We had to then, once we realized, about a year into trying to use the original connector, and it was just a really big struggle, we had lost a lot of people's trust within our company because they watched it just not go well. And we had to say, hey, we're pivoting and we're choosing a whole new tool, get ready. And we have to do this in a really short amount of time because, the sites are live and we've got, we're not shutting them down for any time. So everything's got to stay up and running. And we've got to keep getting orders through, and we need all of the web information traveling back and forth so that we've got the proper, information so our customers feel confident in buying. So, it's a very scary thing. In hindsight, I think we've become much more aware of what we've got going on. NetSuite lets you do so many custom things that we have done all of it. And so when it comes to then like, okay, now we're moving to a different site to host, and you're used to, orders are there right away. Now you're going to see a little lag time. It's a minute or two, but it's still a lag time that people aren't used to seeing. I think that the good outweighed the bad when we made the choice. When someone says they're afraid because it's a whole new platform that they have to then manage, it's the growth going forward that we want to be able to grow and do the things that buyers want when they're on a website. And SCA just wasn't ever going to catch up to what we were wanting to do. We were trying to sit and wait. We were tired of sitting and waiting for those things. What they do so well on the back end, like we needed someone that does that just as well on the front end. And so we knew we were going to have to take some, make some like choices on what was most important. And it was, for us, we want to get the customer to buy. We want the customer to feel confident, have all the features, have all the information, have the like really good buying experience. Once that happens, then it's all on us to figure out how we make that get to them. Then once they've bought, we have to keep their confidence that we are going to deliver on what we say. And so having a good connector and then just being able to utilize NetSuite for what it's really good at has been like, we've been able to grow the sites and give stuff that we wouldn't have been able to do in the past.
That's awesome. So
long-winded,
to paraphrase that, it sounds like from a standpoint of optimizing those e-commerce channels, it definitely paid off. You're able to do things on the site that you couldn't before. That's helping you increase revenue, making the customer stickier, that it's worth the switch and taking on additional integration work to make happen.
Yeah. I mean, Shopify's focusing, solely on or mostly on what their front end offers. So they're continuously to grow that. NetSuite's so wide that I don't know that SEA was ever going to be their top thing. So they're growing other things that do help and benefit us on the backside. We just needed something that could do the same for us on the front end.
That makes sense. We see that a lot in really whether they're 5 million in e-commerce revenue or they're 500 million, you're kind of on this journey to adding more and more specialized tools along the way. Mm-hmm. And so, you might start with your ERP doing a ton of stuff for you, but over time it kind of just focuses more and more on the absolute key things it does best. And then you start adding in. So that's I see that common pattern, not just in e-commerce, but software and SaaS product, product company, really everything. So it's interesting the way you describe that. I'm curious though, you mentioned about essentially some of the things you learn. I mean, you mentioned learning some things along the way. And I love to kind of dive into that. If you were talking to yourself or another company looking to embark on this, what would be some of the things you'd recommend that they do or think about before they started on this journey to transition their e-commerce outside and integrate it and start on a project like that?
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I think was one of my favorite learning things was understanding how we wanted to use the product that we're choosing. When we originally chose one, it was very driven by the company that we chose. They managed everything. You had to reach out to them to do it all. In hindsight, we were like, oh, that just doesn't move as fast as we want it to. So going with Celigo, we have a lot more control and ability within it to do things and be nimble and move fast. You have to rely on being in a queue of 1,000 other people with a support ticket because it's pretty self-service and we can tinker with it into the ways we need it to work. And so that was probably one of our biggest things is we like to have a lot of control, which I think any e-commerce company will probably tell you. They like to have a lot of control of the stuff that they're doing. And so that was one thing I know that I would suggest people know is just how much time you are personally going to have invested in it. Do you have dedicated resources to it or not? After we did the integration, we ended up hiring someone that's a system admin that solely focuses just on our Celigo connection and is managing that day in and day out and has actually, done more than I think we would have ever we wouldn't have ever done before because we wouldn't have had a resource tied to it that can solve those different problems because they're in that every day. We can add it in this way. It's oh, well, that's something we wouldn't even thought about. We would have just tried to do it a way we already thought we knew how to do. And so that's one thing that I think is really important. I think another thing that would be important is knowing all the connection points that you need to have, or having just a really good general idea of everything that you're going to do. And then making the decision on, does it need to live in NetSuite or I guess in your ERP, or can it live on the front end? For a really long time said, it's all going to live in NetSuite. We're just going to push it to all the different places it needs to go. And as we got deeper and deeper into it, when we were starting to look at it, we were like, well, why are we forcing the system to do this when you could just do that on the front end? So being really intentional about what you want where. So if it doesn't serve a purpose other than being on the front end, there was no real need for us to try and keep managing it in our back end and just bypass that altogether if we don't need to.
Yeah, I think that thinking differently about what you want where, that's a really important one. I saw that a lot in consulting with my e-commerce clients because one of the questions we'd always try to figure out was well, where should the merchandising data live?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so very often it ends up, it would live out in the company's journey. They transition to an ERP, usually NetSuite. And then they're focused on having the merchandising data live in NetSuite. And
Yeah.
at a certain point, that may not be the best model, depending on
Yeah.
how you merchandise in your channels where you're selling, because those channels are constantly evolving, and you're constantly really generally, I mean, again, all comes down to the individual business, but you're generally, I see so often, enriching that data so much. And like, if you're always like struggling, and you what I see is you move that closer to the channels, or you move key parts of it closer, it seems to free up the e-commerce team more. Let's the team that's doing the merchandising have a little more flexibility and bring them closer. And I saw a lot of efficiencies from that over time.
Yeah,
Interesting. It's
that's
not the same thing.
oh yeah, 100%. That was probably one of our best learned things, to finally just like be super intentional about what's where. Like we're just doing it because that's what we were used to doing, and so we thought it made sense. And then you get down the road and you're waiting for the data, because you can't have everything going at once, and you've got almost a million things passing in a month's time. So you're going to have stuff that's going to lag. Well, if you want your data there right away, where it's going to be front facing, just use that. So yeah.
I have a quick question. Something that I found fascinating is, in your first year of business, Clickstop went from $14,000 to $1 million, which is pretty obscene in a good way.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about the technology side of things. We talked a little bit about the e-commerce side of things, just acquiring brands, growing brands. What do you think drove some of that growth that maybe we didn't cover yet? What was it? Timing? Was it luck? Was it just sheer determination and strength, or
Yeah.
maybe a little bit of everything? But what else was able to drive your brands from 14,000 to $1 million and then beyond, but just in the first year?
Not just the first year.
But both, I guess, the first
Yeah.
year and then beyond. I'm curious.
Yeah. So I wasn't here for the first year. The
That's
origin
the
story.
secret sauce.
The origin story of the first year is, it was ran out of our chairman's of the board, his garage. Him and one friend were, slinging ratchet straps to anybody and everybody that they could, and we were doing. I think he got into the e-commerce world for the trucking and transportation industry early. We then were able to be quick and kind of lead that for a while. There's a big focus on like the Google Analytics of getting your stuff, on the top of the page, and being, just being really good at SEO. And his success is truly driven by how well he does that. And he's kind of just passed that on from person to person as they step into those roles that do the SEO generation.
Got it. And then beyond that first year,
Mhm.
maybe the last 2 or 3 years, what else, other than acquiring new brands, what else has helped you guys really, really, kind of explode and expand?
Yeah, optimize. It's a lot. It's the e-commerce world of really optimizing the products that we're selling, and being true to our brand promise of, what you want when you need it. We use that across the board for all of our brands. So we're really focused on great pricing, great, shipping time, so the customers are seeing stuff when you want to. It's really hard to compete with Amazon, because I can get stuff sometimes in the same day. So how do we do that? And we've opened up an additional warehouse to serve the East Coast, so we can get stuff to people on the East Coast faster. We're talking about what's the next one that we open up look like. Having plenty of inventory, so we don't have to say no to customers. You mentioned earlier our warehouse space. Yeah, we're actually expanding both of our warehouses. We're doubling, I think, one. I that maybe I'm misquoted there. Maybe don't use that part. We're getting a lot of extra warehouse space for both of our locations in Iowa and South Carolina. So we can take on more products. We can add the stuff that customers are needing, and then we can have it and are able to say yes right away.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. And then the other quick question I had is, you mentioned ESOP, employee stock ownership plan.
Yeah.
I totally knew what that was before researching. Promise, don't worry about it. For those who don't know, not us.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about maybe a quick definition of what that is, and then what that means to you and your employees and Clickstop as a whole?
Yeah. So what are we on? We're on year 6, I think, of it. Yeah, we started in 2017. Our owner saw how we were growing, and we're from the Midwest and small town in Iowa, and it's a lot about family values and just the Midwest way. And as we were growing, he wanted to share that with everyone in the company. It's a way to grow and then have everyone be an owner. So employee stock ownership is, I'm going to probably fudge this really bad, but it's basically shares of the business distributed out to employees as part of a ownership option. It's a good retirement plan for us. I mean, our first class of employees just became 100% vested in the system. So we're seeing, the growth that as the company does better, we do better. So it's a great benefit of the company, and it's a great way to have like an ownership mindset, because you essentially are an owner of the company. And so getting to see the company grow and then kind of grow your retirement plan even with it is a really cool thing to see.
That's awesome. All right, Mark, I know you have more technology and tech stack questions. I just had to derail for a moment. Back to
you. Maybe I'm done. Maybe I'm done. There's a lot here to talk about, certainly. I'll go back, Cara, to something you brought up, EDI, earlier.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to hear what you do for EDI. We didn't get a chance to talk about it, so I'm unfamiliar. So I'm curious, what you do for EDI, how that evolved. That's usually kind of an evolution in part of the evolution step of an e-commerce company.
Yeah.
And curious to know kind of what you do in your journey there.
Yeah. Well, we were kind of forced our hand on EDI on the customer side. We've got some bigger supply companies that we work with that's really a requirement of getting their business, and we didn't want to have to say no, and we wanted that business. So you end up in a very pseudo chopped together version of EDI where you're managing it for 1 or 2 customers, and then you start to look at it from the other end. You're like, well, why can't we force that on our vendors? Like, we are doing the same thing with some of, we're sending and receiving tons of POs and information back and forth daily from vendors. We can benefit from this on that side too. So we took the approach of getting an EDI supplier probably 5 years ago, and have just slowly been adding customers and vendors and different documents as it comes. We do the standard PO acknowledgement, shipment stuff, but we've moved into freight and import information that cuts down tons of time for our finance team, matching up shipping invoices to sales orders and just all of that. So I don't have to do it. So I know it doesn't look fun, but that's thousands of shipments, because every package has a fee attached to it. So being able to match that up to the order that it goes to, and EDI does that for us. It's very nice.
That's great. That's fantastic. I and the way you describe that journey is pretty typical, where you have a I often see it as some large customer. They're a large entity of some kind, whether they're a big box retailer or it could be, and I'm not sure what yours are, like a bigger distribution organization like a Grainger or something. And they're like,
they are one of them.
yeah. So, and they're like, it's EDI or the highway. You don't have an option. Yeah. And it starts there, but it's really, one thing I see that the companies often miss out on is moving that. Then they get it going with the customer side, but they don't then switch over to the vendor side, or it takes them a long time to do that.
Yeah.
So it's really, to me, cool to hear that you've adopted that on the vendor side and pushed into your vendors and said, hey, we're going to communicate. We are, we see that you saw the value of automating and pushed into EDI, particularly in that transportation. I see that as like often like a big miss with organizations. They don't move there fast, like quickly enough. So that's really, I think a big accomplishment to have moved in that area in your growth. That's cool. Along with that, did you build out, do you have like an EDI team now internally that focuses on all your EDI?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
No, not yet. It's something I'd love to have. Right now, I actually implemented it 5 years ago. And I just have not been able to like transition it to anyone. So I still do most of the EDI stuff. To my own demise, I did not do a great job documenting it. So I don't feel comfortable just giving it to someone, but I'm slowly chipping away at getting all of my stuff that's in all my different emails and different tasks all organized in some sort of way so that someone could take it. But there's just there's so much opportunity with EDI, and it's probably similar to the same situation on like Celigo for us. Like if we have someone who could dedicate a lot of time to it, we could see a lot of growth opportunities within it.
We should introduce you to our friend Eric and Piers. They're the leaders of Orderful. They were recently on our podcast, and I know that they help brands set up EDI internally if they have a specific person, but they also allow you to kind of like offload the work to them in their brand/product. So that's a whole nother conversation, but it's not something you want to deal with, because I know how much fun digging through emails sounds. Great.
Yeah, we use SPS Commerce. I was like, hey, can you just tell me all of this stuff?
There we go.
I know it's somewhere on your guys' end.
No, that makes sense. One other thing that I wanted to kind of quickly ask about is just in terms of becoming tech friendly. This is something, Cara, that you and I talked about before the podcast, and we've obviously talked a lot about it now between EDI and ERP and integrations. What's next on the horizon for Clickstop in terms of becoming more tech friendly? Is there a division of software that you're going to dive into? Is there something that you're going to review internally? How do you plan to stay ahead tech wise?
There's a couple of different things. I wouldn't say it's probably something that's going to get us ahead, but something that we know we need to do now that we have more than one warehouse location. We are, we're going to be going down the road of getting a good warehouse management system software in place. Like we're managing, but we know we could definitely be a lot better. Especially when we talk about having the variety of products that, some need lot track, some don't, and some have to be stored in cool places. And so that's one area where we know as a company we can get better. That also gives us a lot better data for the front end, so we can do, a lot of different things on the website to show customer stuff. So that's one area. A lot of companies are talking about AI. I think the world is talking about AI, and it got brought up at our company in our strategy week about a month ago. It was like we have to figure out how we want to use it in our company. There's so many different things you can do with it. We really want to focus on making sure we're intentional and picking the right things to use it for. It writes great content. So we've done some testing of, how does it stack up against, stuff that we write ourselves, and how does that work in the SEO world? And so I think that's just scratching the surface of what AI can do. So first we want to set a really good vision of what it means to use it, and then see us put it into action.
Thought we might get away with not talking about AI one podcast.
You just can't, because it's taking over.
It's a good thing. It's good that you're trying to implement it. So, we have about 11 minutes left, and I usually have a closing question, but I want to open the floor back up to Mark. He's been super insightful with his questions and comments. I just want to give him an opportunity before we close things out.
So, Cara, when you're talking about the AI and some of the other initiatives, it reminds me of something that we've started a relatively new initiative with, particularly new customers coming in and joining us, because it's easier to sort of start. But we've also gone through and done it with a lot of existing customers and put together a concept of what we call an automation roadmap, where you go through and say, where are you going? It might be 24 months, 36 months, and I'm curious. From that standpoint, as an organization, as a mid-market organization that's growing, you've got multiple brands, you've got a lot of areas to gain in efficiency in taking the right step. How do you think about that? Do you work with the team to put together a roadmap? How far ahead do you look from a systems and an automation standpoint?
Oh, it's all over the board. We're an open, we're a shared service model in some capacity for our company, for the technology team specifically. We're managing and helping serve the front end. We got 4 brands that we're really trying to help them grow, but then we've got all the operations that goes on behind the scenes with the sales and the warehouses and manufacturing and purchasing, and so we've really had to just kind of hone in on that shared service model of how we work and be intentional with what the teams want. Everyone wants 1,000 things, but what are the right things we should focus on now? What can we do that sets you up for future growth? Is it, automating a process, or is it finding a tool that does it? We're doing a balancing act. So yeah, I've got a group of great admins and developers on my team that are always eager to solve some weird, complex problem. And so they dive in head first and really like to just see different things get better for others.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
Awesome.
Good insight.
Well, we're coming towards the end of this, and I have 2 questions for you, Cara. One is a bit more general, and one is actually about Pepper Joe's, because I've been growing peppers and super hot peppers for the past 2-3 years. And so
you have.
Yes. I can't eat them, but I grow them.
You just grow them.
Yes. I give them to my neighbors and tell them they're not spicy. So I've been pretty deep into this world. I've been watching Hot Ones, which is a progressively spicy chicken wing eating interview show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Millions of views on YouTube. I'm very familiar with Pucker Butt Hot Sauce Company, which recently created Pepper X, which is the world's hottest pepper.
Yeah.
And something that I noticed about Pepper Joe's, and I'm asking this because I'm a social media manager, is when are you guys going to start a TikTok having people eat hot peppers? Because
I don't want to be on it.
No, you don't need to be on it. You could be giving them out, but between the Pocky One Chip Challenge and all of these hot, spicy food things going on, I think you guys have a fantastic opportunity to take huge advantage on social media of this this pepper craze that's going on and has been going on. So you don't have to answer in terms of when you're going to, but hopefully soon, because I'd love to see it.
You want to be one of the first contestants?
I'll eat a jalapeno.
Yeah, now we're talking. I want to see that.
I'm digging myself a hole over here.
Well, I'll tell you this. My father actually works here, and he does the buying for Pepper Joe's, and they had some pepper sticks that were close to expiring, so they had about 2 weeks left, so they pulled them, and my dad was like, I'll take them and we'll find something to do with them. And I met him and my mom and at the local watering hole on Friday night, and they were setting them up at the bar and chopping up pieces, and people were eating Carolina Reaper jerky sticks or meat sticks, and they're like, oh, it's really good. And I was like, I think it kicks in at the end. And so you saw people get very shocked once they got a little bit into the meat stick that I was like, this isn't as like cooling as I thought it was gonna be.
Well, two things. I'll say one, that's free content. Next time, set up a camera.
Yeah,
And two,
I know. Yeah.
and two, when the podcast is over, I'll send you Mark's address. He'd love a pack. So the final question, now that we're off of hot peppers, something that I like to do is just have people get to know you on a more personal level. So
Sure.
outside of work, outside of hot peppers, outside of EDI and ERP and all that stuff,
Yeah.
Cara, tell us just a little bit about yourself. What are your passions, hobbies, interests? What do you like to do for fun? And then we can close out and get you out of here.
I like sports. So being from Iowa, we're big Iowa fans, and Iowa basketball starts up. So, it's been fun watching the women's basketball get all of the credit that it's getting, and it's fun to be an Iowa Hawkeye fan for that right now. And golf sometimes, not super great at it. I got one hole in one once and said, maybe I never need to play again, because when you've been perfect, you don't have to keep trying, right? But I still find myself going out there every once in a while and remembering why, being very humbled that was just a one-time thing. I play softball during the summer, biking. That's it. Planning a wedding and getting married next April. So that's
Congrats.
a thing.
Congrats. Yeah.
Yeah. So just spending a lot of time with friends and family. I got a 5-year-old niece who can sucker me into almost anything. So
That's awesome. Well, thank you. It's always nice to get to know folks outside of a work environment. And as usual, thank you a ton for being on this podcast. This has been a really interesting episode.
Thanks.
For those of you still listening out there, I'm Jordan Tenenbaum, the social media manager at Celigo. As I said earlier, we're joined by Cara Roor, who's the Vice President of Technology at Clickstop. And as always, Mark Simon, the Vice President of Strategy at Celigo, and my wonderful co-host. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Cara, thanks for being on, and we'll see you around.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.